Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi friends, Cesar here, back with you. We're in Studio C. We've got a great show this evening. Thanks for joining. It's election season. Therefore, we have candidates in the studio. I think you're going to want to listen to both of them. I'm very impressed. In fact, the first guest, you've probably already heard of her, Keys-Gamarra. She is a twice elected at-large school board member for Fairfax County Public Schools. She's also an attorney. Karen has defended families for years. She is an amazing candidate. Full disclosure, I have donated to her campaign. That's what I think of her. Karen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We love that you're moving on into bigger and better things. So talk to us about why you're running for this delegate spot.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. As you know, I've been on the school board now as an at-large member since 2017, nearly 6 years. During that time, I have focused on addressing the needs of all of our students, particularly marginalized families, trying to make sure that we had access to advanced academics to improve that access. I put forth a topic along with another colleague to do a complete review, a study of our special education services, which resulted in a 3-year study with 19 recommendations that was overseen by our Auditor General as a part of our motion expanding her duties. Now we have 19 recommendations to implement, and the community can see that we're really trying to make sure that we're constantly improving. I say all this to say that I have focused as an attorney improving the lives of our community members. I've been a guardian ad litem representing the best interests of children. I've been on the Planning Commission understanding land use issues, and I've also volunteered within the community to try to minimize the impact of domestic abuse. I really felt like this was the time for me to take all of that experience and try to help our community address what I believe is a real crisis in leadership in Richmond.
Amazing. And to that, why is it that you're like but why is it that you're the candidate for this spot? We got a primary coming up, so what are some of the things?
I think my experience actually sets me apart. I'm the only elected official, which means that I am a battle-tested candidate.
Twice at large.
Twice at large.
So, and just for the people that don't understand that, that is for all of Fairfax County.
Right. I am an at-large member that represents all of Fairfax County. And in that role, I've tried to make sure that while we address the needs of one part of the county, we're always thinking about how that impacts everyone, right? I'm the only one that's been on the front line of this culture wars, and the school board has been very much at the center of the attack of Governor Youngkin. He has worked to really defame public schools in his effort to defund public schools. And I've been on the forefront still fighting for things to make sure that our students have real access to opportunity, and I've never backed down.
So why is it that this battle is happening now, particularly in Fairfax County, right? I mean, you've got the experience. Why do you think that's happening?
You said it in the beginning. It's election season, right? And so oftentimes we have people try to create controversy, try to cause people to question someone's reputation. Are they really who they say they are? Is our public school system really providing world-class education? So at every opportunity, Mr. Youngkin has used his Attorney General to, take any suggestion from one of their Republican attackers and say, we're looking into this to really undermine confidence in the public school system.
So why are the voters or the residents in the this is a newly drawn
redistricted area, yes.
So how is it that your experience is going to benefit them? Because it sounds like you've got county-wide experience. And now, in a way, it's kind of going down a little bit to a House delegate district. So that's a huge advantage, I think, for those folks. So.
I believe so. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, there's one thing to say that I want to do a thing, but I have demonstrated that I will do a thing, right? And I have been able to meet with constituents. I've been able to work with our staff. I've been able to work with our state representatives, state agencies, as well as local agencies. I understand the importance of local government in terms of serving our community. And, you know, this is where I've lived for 21 years. And this is where my kids have grown up. And so advocating for families is what I do. I'm passionate about representing those needs, and I'd love to have that opportunity for the House District 7.
No, that's wonderful. You're in a primary.
Yes, I am.
You're in a primary. It's a Democratic primary.
Correct.
Right. So, and that is June, I think, right? The voting is
voting starts May 6th.
May 6th.
All the way through June 20th.
Okay. Primaries are fun.
Okay.
Right?
I'll take your word for it.
They're fun. And the reason I bring that up and why I bring that up is the real test is the general in November. So how do you see yourself getting your message out there to the primary voters, which in Virginia you can kind of like cross over, right? But
well, I mean, as you said, this is a lot smaller audience than I've had to deal with before. And so I'm out there in the community, I'm going to events, I'm putting information in social media in every way that I can so that people can understand. We actually have a very informed electorate in our district. I think in Fairfax County, we're a highly educated community. So as I've interfaced with our community, people begin to tell me what this is about. And oh yes, I'm aware of who the candidates are. And so that's actually fun to run into an electorate that is so engaged. It's a real pleasure.
So, but they should know you. I mean,
yes.
most I mean, all of Fairfax should know you, but specifically this district.
Yes.
And you're able to focus more on that district. I'm not minimizing any district or any role or anything, but when you go from a county-wide role, you're able to bring in a lot of your focus and all those attributes you talked about for these people.
Right, and I've been working in this community in a few capacities, not only as a school board member, but certainly been contacted by a number of constituents with concerns, particularly concerns of equity. And as an attorney, I've represented families within this community. And so this is just a continuation of the service I've already provided, but being able to take that message to the state, I think, would be a real honor.
I hear people talk about equity, and by the way, I think you're very sincere in this space, but explain to people why that's important.
Some people look at equity as though, oh, you're taking something away from me to give it to someone else. And that's not it at all. What my focus when I say equity is, if we have opportunity, are we making sure that opportunity is available across the board? Is it available to all of our students? Is it available to all of our residents, right? And so, for example, in Reston, Mr. Simon had a vision with respect to creating an inclusive, respectful environment that was diverse and offered diverse housing offerings. And he just, I think he believed that democracy could be realized if we put those policies within the way we looked at land use, the way we planned housing, the way we planned access to parks, etc. And you see that vision in Reston. It's a really special place.
Yeah, no, and the reason I like to double click on that is it's not a zero-sum game.
Absolutely not.
Right, and I think too many people get hung up on that. I've started to, this is just me personally, I've started to call it or label it more like the democratization of opportunity. Right, because we're really trying to philosophically establish something that provides the most people the most opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't happen just because you wish it to happen.
You have to be intentional, but what I like to think of is, where is the next Albert Einstein? Did we miss him? Did we put opportunity there to find that person, to find that young lady who is going to to develop the medicine we need for the future? I think it's our responsibility, at least, whether you're on the school board or whether you're a person working in the legislature, to intentionally provide those opportunities, because our community is going to need the talents of everyone to be the best we can be in the future. And
that's really, I think that sums it up. I mean, you summed up what I tried to say more eloquently, but that's it, right? It's how, as an elected official, are you leveraging the things you need to do to provide those opportunities for people? I mean, after all, it is about, the pursuit of happiness and all that stuff that we're supposed to be promised, right?
Right. Well, I mean, democracy is a work in progress, right? Obviously, we can do better.
We always march to a more perfect union, right?
Right. Irrespective of what we've accomplished.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. No, absolutely.
And I owe that to my kids and everybody's kids.
No, that is, that's the struggle, right? And that's the fight. And I know you got the fight in you. And there will be people that push back. So that I have no doubt that you are certainly prepared for to do.
Thank you.
So I know you will definitely do that. Just sticking on the topic real quick before we go to break. Why do you want to stay in this?
I thought long and hard about what my next steps should be. And the bottom of the line, the bottom line is this: I still feel a tremendous sense of responsibility to my community. When I look at my 3 young men now, all in their 20s, I want them to understand that if they're stopped by the police, they shouldn't have to worry. I want their kids to understand that when they go to school, opportunity is there waiting for them. And we have really funded our schools to make sure that opportunity is available.
That's great. Thank you. Folks, please stand by for the public service announcement. When we come back, we'll ask Karen Keys-Gamarra more about what she's planning on doing and how she's going to do it. Come right back. Thanks.
I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We? Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead.
I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. See ya, dude. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice life. Some friends you are.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One of some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward.
I'm the awkward silence.
You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing. Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for coming back. We have a special guest tonight, Karen Keys-Gamarra. She is the delegate candidate for the House representative for the 7th District here in the Commonwealth. Karen, thank you for coming back and staying with us this evening.
My pleasure.
Lots of stuff going on. We talked
Yes.
about why you're running. Let's talk about what you want to get done and how you want to do it. A couple things in the news recently. Reproductive rights. A lot of crazy stuff happening in Texas or all over the country.
Right.
How did we get here?
We got here because we elevated culture wars over our democracy. And the fact of the matter is, women should not have to be afraid that the government will intrude upon her choice for reproductive care, for health care. But we see that happening right now. We see this judge making this decision that a FDA-approved drug should not be available in his judgment.
Right. At the federal level.
At the federal level,
Right.
when we have a rulemaking process.
Is this really happening?
It is really happening because this whole process of I'm in control and I tell you what to do, this authoritarian belief has been elevated and romanticized.
I want my country back.
To such a degree that many people are afraid that democracy is in the process of deteriorating before our eyes.
I believe it is.
Yes.
Especially with some of the beliefs that people are saying publicly now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where you used to kind of say I'm over a beer or something in the back rooms. Now people are just, no, I should tell you what to do.
They've been empowered,
Yeah.
right? We see it with the Tennessee Three.
Yeah.
We see young men who, 3 people actually, who spoke up about gun control.
Right.
They did it in a way in the legislature. And that particular legislature was so empowered that the 2 African American members were expelled.
Right.
The white woman was not.
Right.
It blew my mind, and I thought it's as if they're trying to codify Jim Crow again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you stay in your place,
Right.
right? And so the importance of sending someone, I think, to Richmond who understands that is critical, who understands that the language that's being thrown around, bantered around, is actually reminiscent of massive resistance, of Jim Crow, of, you know, the militiamen that would go around to enforce those beliefs, of those times when women and people of color were seen as property rather than people. And so we're walking a really thin line right now. And it's going to be really important, and I intend to focus on, once I get through this primary, hopefully successfully, my focus is on taking the House back in Richmond, because we cannot afford to play this cultural wars with Mr. Youngkin to try to, whatever he's trying to accomplish on the national scene. Our democracy is fragile at this point.
Oh, I agree completely with you. But what, from a General Assembly, can be done to really codify?
Yes,
At least
yes, we need to codify Roe v. Wade. We won't be able to do that. It would be very difficult. I can't see it happening if we don't take the House back. We cannot lose the Senate. We need the majority to protect individual liberty. I find it interesting that the other side is always talking about freedom, unless they have an opportunity to tell somebody what to do.
What to do, what books to read,
Right.
who to love.
Right, all of that.
Oh yeah, and how to worship.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm a woman of faith, but I strongly believe that in that faith, we must respect the will of an individual. I don't have the right, nor does the government, to make a decision for another individual regarding their choices.
Well, that's why authoritarianism works for people, because if they're in control, then I can control them.
But they don't want to be controlled.
Correct. Well,
they don't want to talk about guns that are harming our children, impacting their mental health, and threatening the well-being of even the respect toward our police, because I know the young men I know who are of color break out in a serious sweat if they're stopped by the police.
No, I've shared this with a few people, but when I was younger in Lockport, New York, I had a gun put to my head. You never forget that. You know, you flinch every now and then. I mean, people don't understand. God bless you if you've never had that problem. Right? I've had friends mugged. But there are people that don't understand that we have hundreds of millions of guns today in our nation. My question is always, at what point are we safer, right? Does everyone need guns? I mean,
well, I mean, we've got to take it out of this emotional thing that you're taking something away from me, right? We had a discussion earlier about equity, right? That people interpret that to mean you're going to take what I have and give it to someone else.
Right.
We have to get away from that, and we have to de-escalate this conversation to understand we're talking about the safety of our residents. We're talking about a sense of well-being. We're talking about the ability to live in your community without fear. I mean, I have sons, they may not want to admit that they look like me, but they're very aware how careful they need to be. My son was in another state, and he saw a domestic violence situation. He's a military guy. And he kind of thought about it because we had had many kitchen conversations about how to stay safe, you know. And the primary thing I said to him, my husband as well, was it's your job to stay alive, right? So he calls the police, he reports it, and he ends the conversation and says, yes, I'll stay here because you asked me to, but I have on a yellow t-shirt, I have on blue shorts, I'm a black man. Please don't shoot me.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. We have to change that.
We have to change that.
So.
You know, and we've had an assault weapons ban before. Washington State just implemented one on their own. I think Virginia can do that. We can take some steps. We can help to lead this country to sensible gun control, and we can make our communities safer in the process.
Nothing would make me happier and prouder, being that this is the headquarters of the NRA. I know we have a lot of volunteers in studio here that dedicate time to it, and it's reasonable. It's just reasonable.
It's reasonable.
You don't need to allow everyone to have access to everything. I mean, there's some. We all have friends that we all know should not have a gun. I mean, we all know that person, right? And that's, I think, a reasonable request, right? You have to have a license to do just about everything. Operate a business, drive, right? So I don't think it's unreasonable.
But I mean, we can look at just the history. We had an assault weapons ban in this nation. When we removed that, that's when we started seeing these just increases in mass destruction from guns. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out.
Well, at some point, people will wake up and start voting on this issue, as opposed to these other things that tend to rile people up. Well, we got a caravan of Mexicans coming over the border, right? And so we got to vote for that person because they're going to take care of that stuff. So.
Right.
It's campaign season. Talk about, you talked about the public school, the infrastructure, the sort of the equity there. One of the things, obviously two things that I want to touch on while we can, the criminal justice and or housing, whichever one you want to talk about.
Well, I'll touch base on that, but I want to pop back onto the education.
Sure.
With respect to affordable housing, Reston has set an example of a diversity of housing sources, townhouses, not focusing on multifamily units, not focusing simply on single unit, single family dwellings.
It's all about zoning.
It's all about zoning. And if you look at the history of how our zoning has been in Fairfax County, the majority, the focus has been on single family housing.
Right.
So we have to flip that.
In certain areas.
In certain areas,
right?
And that could be seen as a tool to prevent diversifying the community.
Oh, let me come out and say it is.
Okay, I'll let you say it. Right, and I think the state has to encourage a real rest and kind of focused policy thinking because we have to provide housing to our constituents.
It's a huge issue. I'm grappling with that in Herndon on the council. We have not had an active in-flight ADU, the Affordable Dwelling Unit projects in the town in years.
Right, and I think we have to look at that with community input. I want to say that because I know there are some communities that have been burdened, really, quite frankly, with providing that level of housing. Those are the places where they have less acreage per house. We have to look at things like parking. We have to listen to our community to figure out how to do it to address the needs of everyone.
Good. You wanted to come back to education.
I wanted to come back because I really want to talk about something I'm very, very excited about and proud about. At the beginning of my term here, I made a proposal when we were changing the name of John Lewis High School. And as I thought about that, I thought, we cannot take a name like that of a man that has made such an impact and just put it on a school. It has to mean something in the curriculum. So I made a proposal that we develop the John Lewis Leadership Academy. It took a while. Initially, you know, people weren't too hot on the idea. But it took about 2 years after I, talked to a number of colleagues, communicated with folks in the community. I formed a partnership with the George Mason School of Conflict Resolution. I formed a partnership with the Bipartisan Leadership Institute. We all came together, brought leaders from across the nation, including the woman that runs the foundation for John Lewis. And all of these people got together monthly to figure out how to make this happen.
Wow.
So we got it passed with a unanimous vote. And just this past week in spring break, our students actually went to follow in the steps of John Lewis in the South and walk across that bridge in Selma.
Congratulations with that.
It was pretty awesome.
Karen, thank you for being here. Good luck in the primary and onward. Folks, come back and join us after this public service announcement. We have another fabulous guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caitlin, be serious. No, take the oath. Come on. I'm totally taking this seriously. Okay, I'm ready. You may begin. I pledge that I will never meet in person with anyone I first met online without checking with my parent or guardian. And furthermore, if my parent or guardian agrees to the meeting, it will be in a public place and my parent or guardian must come along. Do you pinky swear? I do.
When you teach your kids about internet safety, they'll pass it on. For more information, go to cableclicksmart.org.
Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
You're not the kind of guy that makes the girls all sigh.
2 for 3.
You're welcome.
Helping.
What a nice young man.
Pass it on.
My goodness.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
I better get out of here. Ooh.
Get it.
Get it.
Get it.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar back here again in the studio. I have another amazing guest I want you to get to know. Mr. Lawrence Webb is running for the Fairfax County Public School Board at-large position. That's the one that we talked about in the earlier segment. Mr. Webb, thank you for coming. I just want to let the people know that you are a longtime professional educator in Northern Virginia. You've been actively involved in the community for over 20 years. You currently serve as the Administration's Officer at Shenandoah University, University of Mary Washington, and currently at Bowie State. You're the first openly gay African-American elected official in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Congratulations. And you've been a leader on statewide issues in education and justice. Sir, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for making time this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to sharing some time with you and talking a little bit and letting folks know a little bit more about me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. Why or what possessed you to run? Why are you running? Let the folks know.
I made the decision to run for this board seat because we're at a critical time right now. Public education is under attack at all fronts. And because of my experience having served on a school board before, I served a total of 12 years in local government in the city of Falls Church before my partner and I bought our home in Fairfax County. During that time, I worked on many issues that are still some of the same issues that are being talked about today. Prior to stepping off of the board in Falls Church, pandemic, COVID-19. We had to make many, many tough decisions. Those are decisions that we are still having ramifications with now and making sure that our students are getting back on track because of those decisions. We have times with our LGBTQ students. Being a part of that community, it is very important of the strides that we have made over the last 2 years. We must continue to make sure that those students are protected and taken care of, that we don't allow them to go back into the closet trying to figure out who they are. When I was on the board, we were the first school in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Meridian High School in the city of Falls Church, that actually included in their design of the building to have gender neutral facilities. It is very important that those students did not have to figure out where they had to go to the bathroom at, where they had to change at. We made it easy for them to know what they had to do because we know it is very important for those students to be able to be in this world and already having tough decisions, folks judging them. We didn't want to make sure that they had those opportunities that they had.
No, I think that's great. And my heart aches when I hear that. Why do you think that's happening now? I mean, the LGBTQ, and I want to make sure I get the right, it's LGBTQIA plus community. Okay.
Correct.
I want to be respectful. Why is this sort of adversarial, why is this happening now?
It's tough to say why it's happening now, and it seems to be happening more and more at that marginalized communities are continuously under attack. And by making sure that we in this community work to make sure that these students are, as well as the community members, families of these students are protected, are treated as humans with dignity, that they make sure that they are given those opportunities to succeed. Students within the community regularly are challenged with mental health issues because of what they have to deal with, sometimes at home, definitely sometimes within a community. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a school community and as a community at whole to make sure that these students, these families are looked after and taken care of, and let them know that they are important to us and they're valued regardless of what they may do on their own.
No, and I think it's so important that especially young kids as they grow or are initiated into adulthood, young adulthood, that they see leaders that are like them, right? That they know that there is something and people that represent them.
And for me, as a person of color, as well as a member of the LGBTQA community, that it is very important for young folks to see a person who looks like them, who has overcome some of the odds that are put in front of them and been successful, that they, with some potential fortitude, can do the same thing. That someone who has the same challenges and same struggles as them, they can come to, look at, ask questions of, how did you make it through these challenges that you have going through? Did you struggle some of the same ways that I did? And how did you now persevere to get to this point now that you are in life?
Yeah. It seems like it's a lot harder to be a kid growing up today.
It is way more difficult for kids growing up today. I grew up in rural Southern Virginia, where I was just speaking with my brother and sister, to say to them that growing up, we could be outside playing. We could be outside late into the evening, summertime, kind of like what the weather is getting to now, being outside to enjoy time. But now we're getting to the point where my sister, who has raised 2 kids down in that same part of the state, now has to worry about her daughter going outside to the park by herself, because things have changed so much even in rural America. It's not just our inner city and suburbs that are seeing those changes, even rural America is seeing that. So it is a very different and tough place of growing up now, being a young adult, even a child or a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, our biggest challenge was, am I wearing the right shoes, right? Am I wearing the right shirt, right? Now it's just constant bombardment. I mean, in the schools or just with kids, or for me, that's why I love when people like yourself go out and take the leadership role in a community that needs to be spoken for, whether it's different voices, different languages, or different beliefs, or different choices. I mean, so I think that's wonderful what you're doing.
And it's something that I think it's very critical, because there are areas of the county that are pretty high minority areas. Mount Vernon area, for example, that those students sometimes look at the world through a very different lens than most other parts of the county. And it's incumbent of folks like myself and others who are in positions to talk on behalf of those students. They have parents who may not have the same educational background, or they're working class trying to make ends meet, but they don't feel they have the time to go to PTA meetings, talk on behalf of their students, and it's incumbent of folks like myself and others to be that voice for them, go into their communities and give them opportunities to ask questions about what's going on in their students' life. Give them that chance to do that. Make sure that they are not marginalized, that they are being heard on the issues of the day. One of the big areas that I feel is very important is our career and technical education area. College career readiness. My day job, I do work in college admissions, so yes, I want as many students as possible to go to college as they can, but I do know that's not the path for everyone. But what I want them to all have is a plan. Everyone needs a plan to know what they're going to do on that next phase of life. Through our academies here in the county, that gives some of those opportunities, but I want to make sure we have expanded opportunities for those students to go to learn computer technology, to learn heating, plumbing. Have you ever had a hard time finding someone to come be a plumber at your home? Those folks are out there making lots of money right out the door coming out of high school. And I want to make sure that our students who want to make sure that they want to go and do those type of jobs, that we are providing them opportunities to receive certificates, certifications in those areas, so that when they walk out, get their diploma in one hand and walk out to the other side with a potential job in hand to be able to support and take care of their families.
No, I think that's great. And I think another reason why that's so important, the outreach that you mentioned, because the county, kind of like Herndon, there's a lot of immigrants, families, and there's not a lot of English proficiency in a lot of these communities. So they typically come from countries where government or institutions were kind of corrupt. So there's this aversion to trust people from the government. So that kind of outreach, I think, is absolutely invaluable.
It has to be. If we don't reach out to them, we're going to potentially lose students every day if we don't reach out to parents and families who, like you said, there is a lack of trust from some of our immigrant first-generation students who are coming here because of what they left and fled from to come to the U.S. for more opportunities, that we have to show them that we are here to support them. We are here to make sure that their students have opportunities to succeed that they may not have had themselves in their countries, which led them to come to the United States.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about this area, because I think unlike other parts of Virginia, there is so much wealth here. There's so much concentrated wealth that there is an opportunity to provide these underserved communities with those lifelines.
There are a lot of those opportunities here, and we just need to make sure that we fund those again, particular areas that have Title I schools and those feeder schools, where most of those schools do tend to have more of the Black and brown students who are attending first-generation immigrants. That we need to make sure, because those students need the additional support to make sure that they're getting the things taken care of that they need to go on to that next stage, because they may not have that at home. And I think it's a place of the school system to provide some of those opportunities for students. In a county like Fairfax, I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that students are put in a position to succeed in life.
No, absolutely. I was an ESOL student for first grade through sixth grade. I had a horrible accent, speech pathologist, everything. And that's why I think it's so important, because I had that opportunity. I had a community that invested in someone like me. So,
early childhood education, early pre-K is another area that, again, those folks, they need that right out the gate start to put them in a position to be prepared to succeed in life. The earlier that we can get students in front of teachers and education, the better off they will be in the long run of their lives and their educational experiences.
Great. Hold that thought. We're going to come back and speak to Mr. Webb about the other things he wants to do and how he proposes getting them done. Fairfax is a big county, so he's going to need a big plan.
This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it. We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise?
Right. Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for coming back. We're in Studio C with a special guest this evening, Mr. Lawrence Webb. He's a candidate for the Fairfax Public School at-large board seat. Did I get that right, sir?
You got it right. It's a mouthful.
It is. Thank you again for sticking around. Thought we'd focus on some of the things that you want to get accomplished, some of the things you want to get done, and then maybe how you might go about doing that.
A couple of things that I'm looking at as a candidate and why I'm running. We talked a little bit about before, and that's college and career readiness.
Mm-hmm.
It is very important that all students have the opportunity to succeed, be it going on to a four-year institution or going on into the workforce. The county has academies in place that cover auto mechanic, building trades, computer tech, and several others. They're spread out throughout the county. But what we need to do is make sure that that is accessible to as many students as possible. Looking at ways to put additional funding into that area, because students coming from this county, there's a stigma sometimes. I think a lot of students feel that if you say you are not going to go to college here in Fairfax County, sometimes you get looked at a little differently. However, I want to do all I can working with my colleagues, if I'm so blessed being elected to the board, to work with taking that stigma away. Going on into the workforce is a noble and a great something to do, because there are many jobs out there that we all need someone to take care of. Again, I mentioned plumbers, I mentioned auto mechanics, computer tech, cybersecurity. Those are all jobs out there that don't necessarily mean you have to go to a four-year institution to be able to do it.
They pay well too. Right?
And they pay very well. That a student in one of those professions can potentially make as much as a student who graduated with a four-year degree. And guess what? You hear all the time about student loan debt. Those folks walk out the door with little to no student loan debt and potentially making close to a six-figure salary out of the gate. And I want to make sure as many students who want to go into those fields have the opportunities to learn as much as they can and be prepared when they get the diploma in one hand, they're getting a certification in the other, and possible job right out the door. The other area I think that is very important, during my time on the Falls Church School Board, I served during COVID, which at that time, no one knew what exactly they were doing. It was the first time something like that had ever happened. And we made a lot of very difficult and tough decisions because we were trying to protect students as well as our staff. But today, we're looking at students who have some deficiencies because of that time out of school and learning online. Yes, there were some students who thrived learning online, but there were many more who did not. And they've lost some of their math and reading skills. And we need to make sure that we do all we can to put things into place to make sure those students are returning back to where they were pre-COVID. That's working with community groups. That's working with those folks during the summer where there's opportunity for learning loss to happen. That we want to find community organizations that we could potentially partner with to give them, those students in some of our low performing areas, additional resources and opportunities to working more on their math skills and reading skills. During that time also was some of the mental health areas. Our students struggle with social and emotional skills. Again, I mentioned I work as an admissions officer at Bowie State University currently. I have seen that social and emotional loss that students have. Students pre-COVID would come in bright-eyed, wanting to get involved, getting to know new people from other parts of the country and the world, where now you see students come in, go to class, go back to their room, and back on their computers. We need to make sure that we're doing all we can to give students opportunities to get back to those days where they were out and socializing with others. The county has done offering the now tele-counseling program. I want to look at ways to potentially expand that, not only just with our students, but potential staff too, because they had some challenges as well of the social and emotional side during the COVID, and I think they also need that potential and opportunity to work with those areas. And then finally, I want to make sure that our teachers are well compensated. The county schools just passed a collective bargaining agreement with teachers and staff, and I think that is great because teachers will have a seat at the table to talk about what they are looking for and have a chance to make sure that we hear from them firsthand of what they're looking for. I've always been a person who have advocated for our teachers, and I'm happy to say that I'm looking forward to those teachers having a full-on seat at the table, having those conversations with us. We need to make sure that within our community, there's been some loss of trust between the schools, the school board, as well as our community teachers and staff. And if you talk with folks who I served on the board with in Falls Church, as well as folks in the community at Falls Church, they will tell you I'm a person and a consensus builder. I will listen to anyone because I think every person, because I'm a public servant who they have entrusted in, I should listen to their opinions because they do matter. At the end of the day, I may or may not come to the final spot where they may have been, but I want a citizen to say, you know what, Lawrence Webb took the time to listen to me, I felt heard. And because of that, they feel that they had an opportunity to have their opinions heard, taken into consideration prior to any decision that's going to be made.
No, that's definitely important. Absolutely. I think ultimately that's all people can ask, is just hear me out. Here's why, right? So I think that's crucial. I love what you said about sort of the students and the teachers. Raise my taxes, right? I don't have kids in public schools. I don't have kids of that age. But it's important to invest in the education of all kids, because when we don't, we leave this void that gets filled by things that may or may not be real. So the more we can invest and fill them with information, critical thinking, contrarian views, I think that's the way to do it. And teachers can't do it if they don't have the pay. They can't teach in the community if they can't afford to live there, right? I mean, so I think that's great. I think it's got to be done. And that's how we maintain a world-class school system.
Has to be done. And kind of on top of even with that world, making sure that we continue to make sure our students are receiving a world-class education that is not watered down, because we continue to hear more and more of the revisionist history, hearing more about a watering down of an AP African American history course. Those are things that are going to cause more harm than good. And it disappoints me to hear our leaders in Richmond and on the federal level are doing those type of things.
Yeah, why is this happening?
I've been taught that, you know, by not learning your history, you're destined to repeat the same thing over and over again. And what we are doing, and what teachers are doing, is trying to educate our students, trying to give them the most accurate information that we possibly can. And when you continue to hear folks talk about, well, I don't want my particular student to feel bad, that's never the point of teaching history. Right. The point of teaching history is to make sure that we know all the facts.
That's right.
We live in a great country, but there has been good and bad that has happened in this country, and I think we have to discuss it all.
When did the criteria came to being where if the student feels bad, we shouldn't teach it? When did that start? Just curious.
It's something that you continue to hear in the last 2 to 3 years, that they don't want, you know, when you're talking about, particularly, let's say, the civil rights movement, you talk about slavery, there are some who feel that because you're talking about those things that potentially happen to a group and a race of people by one other race, they feel, well, I don't want my particular child to feel that they are being looked at a particular way because they did that. And again, I look at it as, again, I'm not singling out anyone.
Right.
I am presenting history.
History is history.
And you can look at history and take it as you will, but no one's trying to present it in a way to make anyone feel one way or the other. You're here in 2023. That happened back in the 1800s. Of course you didn't have any direct role in that, but it happened.
Right.
And I think we need to, again, continue to have those conversations, because if we look at things of the George Floyd type of things have become challenging for certain folks, and we have to make sure that we talk about those things to make sure that history does not repeat itself.
And the notion to try to revise it, that's very Orwellian, right? I mean, to me, it's like, why would you want to teach something different than what actually happened?
Makes no sense to me. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about ways that we can prevent those type of things from ever happening again,
right?
And become a more just society, which our Constitution and Declaration always talks about. Everyone is created equally.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that just doesn't happen because we wish it to happen.
It takes work.
That's right.
It takes work by all to make that happen.
Yeah. To wrap up here, this has been amazing, by the way. Thank you for making time for us this evening. Where do you hope this goes? You're successful, but what would be the one thing you definitely want to get done?
The one thing that I definitely want to get it done, and it's going to sound like a broken record, it is that college and career readiness.
Okay.
I want students to.
That's your initiative.
That is what I want students to be able to walk out of the door
I think that's great.
And ready to hit the ground running, regardless of going to a four-year institution or going into the workforce. I want everyone to have that plan and be ready to go.
Yeah, and trade schools are not a lesser thing.
Not at all.
I think it accelerates people into the workforce.
I agree. It's a way that students can move very quickly into taking care of themselves and their families.
Excellent. Mr. Webb, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Good luck. We'll be in touch. Folks, that's our show this evening. Thanks for joining us. You can check out everyone's websites on the links below. Thanks.